Hello, this is How To Bob, and in this video I'm going to show you how to disassemble, clean, and reassemble a Mosin Nagant M91 30. This is a beautiful bolt action gun. This particular one is from 1938, and you'll notice that it comes with the bayonet attached. And the beautiful thing about this gun is that it requires no tools other than what it comes with to disassemble the weapon. So I'm going to get started by taking off the bayonet. There's a little spring clip here. As you can see, it just pushes in. Once it pushes in, you just rotate it towards the front sight and then work its way straight off and put it back on. You just reverse the process, push it in, and twist it, and it'll click into place. So I'm going to take that bayonet off for right now and start disassembly from there. Now, the first and most important thing is to make sure that your firearm is not loaded. So I'm going to check it out. The chamber is completely clear. I'm satisfied. Now I'm going to remove the bolt, and to do that I just pull back on it and I have to push the trigger to release it. So I'll put it in here and it'll come back so far, and once it gets so far I have to pull the trigger and that will release the bolt, so I can pull the bolt right off the back. Now I have the bolt assembly out. Set that over here, and the next thing that I'm going to do is remove the barrel band springs. Now there's two of them. I'm going to remove the front one first. Just push the spring clamp and it pulls forward. The back one's a little more difficult, so I'm going to use the flat end of the bayonet, which also doubles as a flathead screwdriver, just to kind of give it a little help there. And I want to be real careful not to damage my firearm here because this is an antique. So I just gently slide my barrel band spring all the way down, and once that second one comes off, you have to push in the front spring to get it over that. It won't come all the way off because of the front sight. We're not going to remove the front sight, but you'll see the handguard comes off the top of the barrel. So I can set that off to the side and move on to the next piece, which is the cleaning rod. I'm just going to go ahead and unscrew that and pull that out of there real simple. And next I'm going to remove the follower, and there's a little clip here that lets this open. This is where the bolts get loaded in. It can come out, and it's spring loaded, so you can see it clicks right into place. So once I get this open, I simply squeeze the spring here, and you can see the little slot here that opens up once it's been squeezed. So now that I have that off, I can get my bayonet, and you see the end of the bayonet, how it's flat, like a flathead screwdriver. I'm going to go ahead and remove the bottom screw. This is the magazine tang screw, and it is the shorter of the two screws that we'll be removing on this firearm. The next one that I'm going to remove is on the top. You can see this one's shorter. The next one's on the top of the gun, and it is the receiver tang screw located right here. So I'll just use the end of the bayonet, the flathead screwdriver part of the bayonet, and remove the receiver tang screw. Now you can see that this top screw is just a little bit longer than the bottom one, and that is the last thing that's holding the barrel and the receiver, so that just pulls right off the top. Once I get that out, I can go ahead and pull out the magazine and the trigger guard at the bottom. It just pulls right out. And then I'm going to start cleaning my weapon, and to do that I'm going to use an ammonia-based Windex. And the reason I'm using an ammonia-based Windex is because there's a good possibility that this weapon has fired ammo that is considered corrosive. And by corrosive, I mean an ammo that will leave a salt-like substance around the metal parts of the gun, causing it to attract moisture, which will promote rust. So Windex with ammonia, or just ammonia and water, will break down that salt-like substance and get the gun clean. So once I get this cleaned off real well, I'm going to wipe it off and then use my air to blow out any of the excess Windex, and then I can wipe my gun down because I don't want the Windex on the finish. Now the next thing I'm going to clean is the barrel, so I'm going to use just a standard old patch here, and what I'll do is douse my patch down with some Windex, and I'll run that down the barrel to get the barrel nice and wet with Windex. And all it takes is just running it down once and back out. That'll leave some Windex in there, and it'll take any residue left over from the previous rounds out of there. Once I get that out, I'm going to go ahead and work it around a little bit. Make sure I get it all cleaned out. Then I'm going to start with a clean patch, dry patch, and I'm just going to go down the barrel and make sure I get all the Windex out of the barrel. And I can keep doing that until I come out with a clean patch several times. Then I'm going to go in with my standard Hops gun cleaning solution, just like I normally would with any other rifle, and I'm going to work that around on the inside of the barrel back and forth just to get it nice and wet in there. Now the next thing I'm going to do is get my copper brush or brass brush, and I'm going to run that down the barrel and scrub out the inside of the barrel once I've got the cleaning solution in there. So I'll just run it in and out of the barrel a few times just to loosen up anything with the cleaning solution, and then I'll go back in with a dry patch just to pull out anything that I loosened up with the brush, and I'll do that a couple times until I come out with a clean patch. A couple, 3 times ought to do the trick. And then I'm going to go in with my gun oil just to protect the surface of the gun. I'm going to go ahead and run some gun oil. Your basic gun oil will work just fine on this weapon. I just want to give it a light protective coating of oil. The next thing I'm going to clean, and I'm going to use my Windex once again, is the receiver area. So I'm going to go ahead and spray some Windex on my rag, and I can also spray some on my receiver to get it down in the cracks. Now this is how I clean it the first time before I fire any corrosive ammo. There's a different procedure I would use. If I just fired some corrosive ammo, I would highly recommend cleaning it as soon as possible after you fired the corrosive ammo, and I will do a video on that here in a little bit. I'll just blow off the extra Windex, and then I'll come back in with my gun cleaner, my Hops, and I'll spray it around the receiver, and then get that good and wet, and use my brush, nylon brush, and I'm just going to scrub it around. Okay, next I'm going to wipe my receiver down, get any excess cleaning solution off there, and once I get that done, I'm going to go ahead and use my air compressor again. If you have a can of air, anything will work. I just like to use that to get any of the cleaning solution out of the cracks. Next I'm going to use my gun oil, and I'm going to work in all the cracks and crevices. Once I get some oil dribbled in there, I'm going to go ahead and use a Q-tip to work it around anywhere that any movement is going to occur, where the bolt's going to slide, the trigger is going to move. Anywhere that I'm going to have any movement or needs to be coated, I'm going to go ahead and cover that. Now I'm going to start on the bolt, and first off I'm going to start by uncocking the bolt, and that is turning it 90 degrees. You can see it's uncocked now. And the first piece that I'm going to remove is the guide rod connector. It just pulls forward, and a slight turn, and I have the bolt head off. It just slides in and turns. You can see it if it's lined up, it stays on. You just turn it and it comes right off. So it's real simple. The next thing I'm going to take apart is the firing pin spring, and you use the guide rod as a wrench. It's like a spanner wrench or a forked wrench, and you got to put that in the 2 flat spots, and you want to make sure that you hold this tight because there is a firing spring that's inside here, so it's under pressure. You don't want that to go flying, so hold on to that tightly. Now that it's loose, my cocking knob in the back comes off, and my firing pin and firing spring. So that's all the pieces there are to the bolt on this particular weapon. So I'm going to go ahead and just clean this stuff up. You can see here the forks fit right in the flat spots of my firing pin. So I'm going to start again with the Windex because of the ammonia. I'm going to wipe down the whole bolt with the ammonia before I go to my gun cleaner. So spray a little bit on the rag and wipe down all the pieces with the Windex first off. This particular weapon hasn't used corrosive ammo in a while. It's been in storage and I've already cleaned it, so it's not real dirty, but I want to make sure that I get any amount of corrosive material on the gun out of there. And like I said, if I was using corrosive ammo, I would definitely clean this a little bit differently, but since this thing's just came out of storage, it's not necessary. But I'm going to go ahead and use some ammonia-based Windex to start out and just gently wipe down any of the pieces just to be sure. I want to preserve the gun the best that I can. Okay, now that I've got all my pieces cleaned off and wiped down, I'm going to use some compressed air to blow out any of the Windex that might be in the cracks and crevices, and I'll do that for each piece in the bolt. Make sure I get all that cleaned out. Wipe off any excess Windex that might come out of it. And then I'm going to use some just regular gun cleaner once again and spray down all my pieces. And I can get my nylon brush. I can work it in some of the smaller parts and wipe off some of the smooth parts that don't have any crevices. Just wipes right off. Here I'm going to scrub the inside of this and make sure that I get all the residue out of there. Okay, now that I have all my bolt assembly clean, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that they are dry, get all the Windex, get all the gun cleaner, everything off before I go to my gun oil. And I'm going to put a little bit of oil on there, and I'll take a Q-tip and I'll work it in some of the spots where the oil might set. I don't want too much oil in there, and I just want to make sure I get a good coating of oil all around the bolt assembly. So here's how the bolt assembly goes back together. I'll lay it out on the bench here, and you can see the spring goes here, and then the firing pin goes into the spring, and then the cocking knob in the back is where the firing pin, you have to kind of put pressure onto it, and I've found it easier to put it on the bench, and you can push down when you're using the guide rod to tighten it, and then you just start turning the bolt body, and that will get the screw started into the cocking knob. Now you want to make sure the little line in the back of the cocking knob is lined up, should be flush with the back of the cocking knob, and it should be, you'll see the little line there, you want to make sure that those are lined up straight in line and flush. Once you get that done, we can go ahead and put the guide rod back together. That just slides with the firing pin right down the middle, and there's a little tab on the back where it slides in. And then I can put my, you can see it actually cocks very well now. Now I'm going to put my bolt head in, and that just slides in and turns so that it lines up and locks it into place. You can see it lines up right here. Just a slight turn, and now it's locked in, and it cocks nicely. Again, let's push it up into the locked position. Looks good. It's back together. And once again, I'm going to use a Windex here to clean my follower. Spray it down, scrub it off with a nylon brush, and then I'll take my air, blow out any excess Windex, use my gun cleaner and my nylon brush and scrub out any residue, wipe that off, and then I can come back in, blow it off with the air right before I put my oil, gun oil, and I'll work that around and all the moving parts, and then I can use a Q-tip to get down in the cracks and crevices underneath here and to get any excess out. So now we've got it pretty well cleaned. We can go ahead and start putting it back together. First thing I'm going to put on there is the trigger guard magazine. Then I'm going to put my barrel and receiver on the top. You can see the hole here goes right there. Gets lined up. Next I'm going to put my hand guard on. It's a little wooden piece that goes over top of the barrel. And then I can get my barrel band clamps. Now these have a little split in the bottom of them. You can see here it's split in the bottom. That's what gives it its spring tendencies here. And you just slide those back on. And again, I want to make sure that the split goes in the bottom. I suppose it doesn't matter if it goes up or down, but I think it looks a whole lot better if you leave it down. Now I can take my cleaning rod and slide that back into place and just screw it in. Doesn't have to be really, really tight or anything like that. Next I'm going to go ahead and put my screws in the bottom. Again, I'm using the end of the bayonet. Nice feature with this weapon. End of the bayonet is a flathead screwdriver. And the other screw, now this is the longer screw, and it goes in the top. And I will use my bayonet once again, just to put the flathead screw in. Next I'm going to put my follower back in, and you squeeze it and it creates a little channel there. When you release the spring tension, it locks it into place. So I can slide it up into there and release it, and then close it and latch it. And then all that's left is put the bolt in, and I'll put the bolt, slide that in. Once I get the bolt in, I'll work it a few times, make sure it works smoothly. And that's how you clean your Mosin Nagant M91 30. I'm going to wipe this thing down, make sure it's nice and clean. This is How To Bob. Thanks for watching.